Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
I guess it is 1 p.m., so we can start saying good afternoon, but maybe it's also
That's
been a
true.
long day for folks.
Thank you. Yes, it's obviously been a morning for me in preparation, and it's now no longer morning. So, well, thank you all for being here again. This is our third week in a row. So I appreciate anyone who is been with us for all three of our boot camp series so far. If anyone's here for the first time, thanks for joining us. If you are here for the first time, I'm Ashley Blackham, and I'm here with Cassidy Dragonet. We are here today to do a quick walkthrough with Prototype. Hopefully this practice will be helpful to specifically walk through a scenario and kind of get that real-time practice. um, yeah, Cassidy, do you have any updates really quick for everyone before we get started?
I do, yeah. Hi, everyone. For those of you who maybe don't know me, I'm Cassidy Dragonet. I get to work with Ashley here, supporting student financial aid efforts in the state of Utah. And I just got out of an exciting meeting where I learned that FAFSA for the 26-27 has been in beta testing, so it's been available for students on a limited basis. And then they had a waiting list for folks that were eager to get started. They could request to be part of beta testing, and they'd have to wait about a week, and then they would be admitted. And FSA has moved into what they're calling open beta, which just means anyone who wants to start the form can do so. They put in a request, but everyone will be approved. So I'm putting in a note here, or not a note, a link that gives more information from FSA about joining beta. Essentially, all this means we're not going to be adjusting any FAFSA events to start any sooner, but for any students that are eager to get started, that are ready, um, the form is available now for those students that want to get started. They may notice some bugs. They're still hoping to get more students in testing to identify any other lingering bugs, but for the most part, their statistics have been really positive. Students have been going through well. So just an exciting update. We are very certain with this open beta period that October 1st launch is definitely on the way. So cheers to returning to kind of what is a FAFSA normal that has gone out of whack the last few years. So with that, Ash, that's all that I have. Thanks for letting me start off with that.
So thank you so much. Very exciting, like you said. Good to hear that we are ready for the launch of FAFSA on October 1. So that's great. Just to go over a couple of things here for future, we do have two additional case study webinars coming up. We'll go over an intermediate case on September 24th and then an advanced case study on September 30th. So again, like we've done before, we'll provide these slides and links again as well. Feel free to sign up for one of the future events as well. And then for additional practice, we've included a link to our full case studies workbook. We've picked three particular case studies. The sort of basic one we'll be going over today, intermediate and advanced, but the full case studies workbook, I believe there are 8 case studies there. So you can get some additional practice for that full workbook. So we'll make sure that everyone has access to that. And then, yeah, today with this beginner level, we have broken out just the case study into just its own workbook. So Cassidy will provide just that workbook for now. We'll go ahead and use that as we work through it today. And then we'll be using the FAFSA prototype to walk through our scenario today. And as I mentioned in the full case study workbook, there are other scenarios. So you are more than welcome to use this prototype with the access code and walk through them. If you have joined us in years previous, we've had done these a little bit differently where we'd broken out into different waiting rooms and worked on lots of different case studies where we thought today we would just discuss everything together, kind of go through it live with active participation. So if you have joined us in the last couple of weeks, we had kind of held questions to the end, but for today, please feel free to raise your hand or come off of mute and ask your questions. As I go through the prototype and demonstration, Cassidy will be monitoring the chat. So if you throw anything in there, we are happy to answer questions that way. But I think for the purpose of the demonstration, questions are definitely encouraged as we go through. That way we can kind of see this sort of real-time scenario and what questions pop up, and then we can kind of work together to go through it. So I'm hopeful to have your participation. And yeah, that is what I've got for you. If there are any questions before we get started, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is go ahead and share our basic case study. I'm hopeful Cassidy can give me a thumbs up if you guys can see this basic case study number 1. Okay, perfect. So if we have questions, I'll refer back to this, but as I mentioned, it would be helpful as well if everyone at least could have this basic case study number 1 pulled up. That way, as we go through the questions, we can hopefully have you guys help me fill out the prototype. I may pose some questions to you all about the information that's here in the basic case study. That way we can fill it in as we go. As I mentioned, I'll keep sharing my screen so that we can toggle back and forth if I need to copy over some information, but feel free to sort of help me as we go through this prototype. Excuse me, as we go through the prototype. Essentially, this first pop-up that comes up here is just letting us all know about the prototype. It does have some functionality limitations, so certain options and drop-downs are not available as we go through. I think there's 1 or 2 examples I can kind of show you, but essentially when you click on that prototype link that Cassidy provided in the chat, this is just the first screen that you'll see. So scroll down a little bit and then just click View FAFSA Preview. If we want really quickly, I'll read through the executive summary and then we can kind of get started. So essentially the case study that we'll be going through today explores the process of completing the free application for federal student aid in a scenario that involves divorced biological parents who are now remarried. One parent is a business owner, which introduces an additional complexity in reporting financial information. In addition, the student is selected for verification and must provide additional documentation to validate information that's reported in her initial FAFSA submission. So here's where we'll get started. This is the link that I've opened in this additional page. And then, as I mentioned, there are just some things that we won't be able to see. The prototype doesn't show any of the questions that are automatically transferred from the IRS, even if it's required to insert the information manually. As we go through today, the questions won't be shown because the information will automatically transfer from the IRS. So it'll go through the demonstration just showing the few basic questions that they'll have to answer about their finances in addition to the information that's been automatically transferred. So for this first case study, we'll go to begin a new application with Raya Tran. We'll launch the user and then we'll want to make sure we're selecting a 2627 FAFSA form as the student. So we'll click launch this user. Again, we're here on the prototype page. As we launch, the students will be asked to log in. So we did go through creating an account on studentaid.gov in our earlier video. So everyone should be familiar with that. If folks are watching this recording later, there is another video on how to go through that process as well, but student will log in and then click Start New Form. and then they will start the form as the student here. Click continue. The student does get 4 informational videos. I think we mentioned in our deep dive that these are helpful to students if, especially if they and their parents may be first time filers of the FAFSA. So I'm going to continue through the videos to keep this a tight presentation, and we have gone over some of this stuff in the deep dive, but again, these informational videos are helpful. It just goes through the FAFSA form, a contributor. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through this particular form for the student. And then they have a video on kind of what to expect, and then submitting their FAFSA form. And then button here lets them start. So student identity information. So it does pull all of Raya's information from what was used to create her studentaid.gov account. So if any of this information here is not correct, the student would need to go to account settings to update that information. For the permanent mailing address, we'll want to update it here. So we'll toggle back to our case study document to get some additional information. So we do have a little bit of background. Looks like Raya is a high school senior who uses pronouns she, her. Parents divorced when she was in middle school and have since remarried. Although Raya splits her time equally between her parents' household, she receives the majority of her financial support from her mother, Alcina. Her mother's household includes her mother, stepfather, and younger stepbrother, Jax. Her father's household consists of her father and stepmother. So student information, as we were looking, looked like date of birth looks good, email and phone number, but we will want to update the address here. So I'm going to copy over some information. I think that was the right one. Okay, great. Perfect. So we've got this information updated. So now it brings up legal state of residence. Anyone who's looking at the document feel comfortable telling me when this student became a resident of the state of Utah? Okay, let's toggle back to the document real quick. Let's see. So residency looks like student moved to Utah in March of 2019. And their residency is established after living here for 12 consecutive months. So residency was established March of 2020. So we'll go ahead and do 03 of 2020 here. And then this page is where students will need to provide their consent or they won't be eligible. We went through this a little bit more in the deep dive, so we won't go into it here, but essentially they will need to approve to provide consent as then it moves into this screen where it shows that they have successfully connected and imported their information with that data retrieval tool to the IRS. And so they've been able to connect that information, and then they'll just click continue to proceed. And then as it says right here, the student will still have to answer some additional questions. So even though it's connected and sort of auto-filled all of the like financial questions that have to do with the tax return, they do answer some additional questions. So they'll click continue. And again, this just helps determine eligibility for aid. And the information that's collected here does affect the type of aid students are eligible for. And then it does let students know that sometimes they need to collect information from other people depending on the answers in this section. So as the student moves through, they'll click continue. The student's current marital status was single, never married. So we'll click continue. Student college or career plans for 26-27. Will the student be a first year freshman? Yes. So we'll click that one. When the student begins the 26-27 school year, will they already have their first bachelor's degree? No, I believe the background information did let us know that the student did take some concurrent enrollment classes while they were in high school, where they may have earned an associate's degree, but they have not earned a bachelor's degree. So we would click no here and then continue. The student then answers some questions about their personal circumstances. For the purpose of our demonstration, the student is going to click none of these apply in this particular situation. So we'll skip through those. And at any time on or after July 1, 2025, was the student unaccompanied and either one, homeless, or two, self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? No. And then any unusual circumstances. So this information is used to help evaluate students' ability to pay for school. And in this section, any unusual circumstances that might prevent the student from contacting their parents or might pose a risk to the student by doing so, they would need to check the box yes here. In our situation, we'll be checking no to continue. So we get to this screen here that confirms the dependency status for our student. Raya is a dependent student, which means they will need to provide parent information on the FAFSA form. And then this next question here is just making sure that the student recognizes that they have to provide their parent information. If the parents refuse, and they're clicking yes here, are the student's parents refusing to provide information? As I mentioned, this is just a prototype, so it won't let us look. But if someone were to click yes here, they would get additional information saying, hey, if you do this, you are only eligible for unsubsidized loans. So as long as students' parents are able to provide information and they want to be considered for a Pell Grant, work study, all of those other types of aid, we'll want to click no here and then continue. And then it moves into student demographics, where we'll click continue. This question is required. The answers will not affect the student's eligibility for federal aid or be used in any calculations or shared with schools where the students apply. So we'll answer female for this question and click continue. For race and ethnicity, again, the answers don't affect their aid calculations and are not shared. With this, when they have a box for prefer not to answer, otherwise, depending on the boxes that they're checking, there's additional drop downs where they can select the subcategories or enter in additional information, but they can click prefer not to answer here and continue. And then students' citizenship status. The student in our scenario today, Raya, is a US citizen, so we'll select that before we continue. Anyone reading through our situation want to help me with the answer to this one? Did either of the students' parents attend college or complete college?
Yes.
Rhea's, oh, go ahead. No, you do it.
So sorry. It looks like her mom got her associate's degree and her dad received a bachelor's degree.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we'll select one or both parents completed college and continue. And then this question about parent killed in line of duty. Was the student's parent or guardian killed in the line of duty either while serving on active duty as a member of the U.S. Armed Forces on or after the events of 9/11, or two, performing official duties as a public safety officer? For our demonstration today, the answer is no. And then high school completion status. So will the student's high school completion status, what will the student's high school completion status be at the beginning of 26-27? So remember for this 26-27, the student will be entering their first year of college in the fall of 2026. So the student's high school completion status at that time would be high school diploma. Alrighty, high school information. So from what high school did or will the student graduate? For this one, as we mentioned in the deep dive, we want to make sure that we're selecting the correct school so that the FAFSA completion information and all the reporting is done correctly. So we'll go ahead and search for the school here. I believe in the example, it's Bassett. And then you can click search. Perfect. We'll highlight that here. And then click continue. There is a way here, if it's not showing up when you search, you can add that school manually. And then it does give us a confirmation here to verify that the high school information is correct. And then we can continue to make sure that that's added. There is in the live version, there'll be a way to edit your information there if it's not correct. Then we move on to student finances. They'll click continue. Student 2024 tax return information. Just as a reminder, it does use prior tax year information. So this is specifically asking about the student, Raya. So we know that the student did work when they were in high school and they did have tax return information. So we can use that has been used to fill out the, again, questions that we can't see here. And then the student just needs to answer these additional questions here. So did the student have an IRA rollover, IRA or other qualified plan? Let me pull this back up unless someone wants to help me fill those in. Let's see. Student finances. Okay. Has no IRA or pension, no rollovers, no benefits, and no foreign income. So we'll go back and enter 0. Continue. Oops. I guess I could show you what will happen there. Oop, maybe it doesn't. I didn't enter 0, but usually it will say go back and enter 0 or a number. Students' assets. Someone mind telling me what amount the student had in current cash savings or checking account?
$725.
Thank you. And I believe the other ones were 0. Is that correct? Current net worth of investments. I don't believe the student had any. So we'll enter 0. And net worth of business, I believe that was 0 for the student. Correct me if I'm wrong before we move forward. I didn't switch back. Alrighty. We move next into selecting their college or career schools here. So we'll continue quickly. The student can enter their schools by state. I think in our demonstration we had California. We might also have the school name. Let's do Bernard College. There we go. Select that one. I actually think it pulled up the other ones we needed here. Let's see. Northeastern and Rice. So we can select that one and one as well. So it shows we have our 3 of 20 schools selected. We'll click continue. This is just letting us, I think all the schools we selected for our demonstration were out of state schools, but just letting students know to be eligible for state grant aid in Utah, they must list an eligible in-state college. And so it doesn't impact their eligibility, like to list it and not to go there, but they do need to add that one too. All right, so we'll move into inviting a parent as a contributor. A contributor is anyone who's required to provide information on your FAFSA form. They must invite a legal parent who's biological or adopted as determined by the state. Step parents and other types of guardians do not count unless they have legally adopted the student. So this here is really helpful as you're moving through our scenario today. I thought it would be good to use the tool that way as you're helping other students who might have similar situations or differing situations that you can use this tool. So for today, we have Alcina Tran as parent number 1, and then parent number 2 is James Lee. If the student only has one legal parent, you'll leave parent 2 blank and mark that box. This form here, sorry, just as a reminder, we are in the FAFSA form here, but when we click on this link, it just is opening to a new tool that's on federalaid.com. So this is just a basic tool to help students figure out who they need to add to their FAFSA, but this is not built into the form. So this is just a separate little tool that's helpful. Sorry, that was kind of confusing. I opened up a new one, but I had the 2 parents here. So this is helpful because we're trying to figure out exactly who will need to be on Raya's FAFSA today. So we entered in the student's 2 legal parents, and then it's asking if the legal parents are married to each other. And in our scenario today, the answer is no. And then it's asking if they live together, which is also no. And then which parent has provided more financial support for the student over the past 12 months? Anyone remember in our scenario who, if it was Alcina or James?
Alcina?
That's right. It was Alcina. Because in our scenario, it did say Alcina provided more support. It does give some more information here that says if both parents provided an equal amount of financial support, or if neither supports the student financially, select the parent with greater income and assets. The parent who provided more financial support may or may not be the same parent that the student lives with. So they're all again, will be caveats depending, but today it is the mom, Alcina, and then Alcina did remarry. So we'll mark yes. And then it does give us some additional information saying that Alcina, the parent, will be needed at screen here. And then this one says Alcina Tran's spouse is needed. And there's some additional information. So it says the student will need to invite only Alcina to the FAFSA form. Alcina should report their current marital status as married or remarried. If Alcina filed taxes jointly with their spouse, Alcina is only required as a contributor. Alcina will then report their own information and their spouse's information. However, if Alcina and their spouse did not file taxes jointly, then both the parent and the parent's spouse are contributors on the FAFSA form. Alcina will be prompted to invite their spouse, and then their spouse will provide some individual information. So that's the scenario where we ended up today. So Alcina and her new spouse are married but filed taxes separately. So hopefully that helps. And again, this tool will kind of play out and autofill differently depending on what the answers are, and can give students a little bit more help on who to add. So we'll pop back over to our scenario here and click continue. So this is where we were going to have Raya invite Alcina, their parent, as we just determined they provided more than half. Oh, now I just lost it all because I've got lots of things in my brain. So let me pop back over and grab this email address for the parent really quick. Let's see. Mother's email. Okay, so we're going to invite the mother because she provides more than half of the financial support is what I was meaning. Sorry to.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely, yeah.
So is this true for every case where the primary parent is remarried and filed separately, that they will need both people's, like the spouse and the parents' tax information?
Correct. Yep. If they
Okay.
are remarried and filed their taxes jointly, then we would just be inviting the mom, the parent. But because they are remarried and filing separately, the second parent does have to provide their information, or step parent.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Perfect. Thank you. Good question. Okay, we'll move on then as we invite the first parent contributor. This is Alcina, her mom. We'll send the invite. It wants to give us just a double check here to make sure. So we'll send the link to this email, send invite, and then it confirms here that it's been sent. And you can also use this little drop down here to see other ways. We mentioned this in the deep dive, but they use a specific code now. So you can also copy the link here or like write down this particular code for the parent contributor to be able to like start work on their portion of the FAFSA. So yeah, this is great. This is still part of the student's FAFSA. So this is just letting the student know that their parent has been invited, the invite's been sent, but the student can save this information if they need to be able to link their parent at a later time if perhaps the parent did not get the invite email. The easiest way for the parent to do their portion will be to get this email. And I think we'll show a demonstration of it here as we accept it through for the parent, what their email kind of will look like. So we'll continue on as the student here. Their parent has been invited, and then it just brings them up to their final response page where they are able to open up these sections, just review all of their information one more time and make sure everything looks good. And then if anything does need to be edited, they can go back and change those. And then they can just double check again the contributor information. And then the status does show that the invite email has been sent. So the student will continue. They'll need to go through and sign and complete their section to make sure that everything's final and submitted on the student's end. So they'll scroll down, check this box, and then they'll sign the student section here. And then this is a good page for the students to kind of have access. They're able to we are going to move forward, but we're going to ignore this for just a second and pretend like you can't, you can see what's behind it. But on the site page behind, you can save that page. It just basically shows that while the student portion has been submitted, that there is still additional action that needs to be taken before their full FAFSA is actually complete and submitted. We need to move forward with the parent contributor portion. So it does show at the bottom that while the student's portion was submitted, that there is additional contributor information that's necessary next. So for the prototype, it is going to move us through to the parent contributor portion. This is not a view of a FAFSA application. This is what like the demo email will look like. So when the parent, Alcina, it says Raya has started their application and added you as a contributor. They need your input to be eligible. Essentially, it has this accept invitation link. And again, it has like just the access code that they can copy and paste as well. So this is what the parents' email will look like. Essentially, when they click to accept through the email, it brings them to the same screen with federal student aid where they will need to log in. Again, if the parent has not created an account, they'll need to do that. Otherwise, they can go ahead and log in here. And as you'll see, it has, because they clicked on the link directly from the email, it does autofill the invitation code here. So that's what they'll click submit. If they had not been able to use their email and they had just logged into federal student aid, like I mentioned, they can just manually input that invitation code to be able to link it to the application that their student has already started. So they'll click submit. And again, we'll need to use some personal information. So we'll click continue and accept. And then this is for the parent contributing to the FAFSA. There's just some additional information, frequently asked questions. They can open these drop downs to answer some basic questions before they continue. And then again, as we mentioned, I'm gonna, for time purposes, move through these videos, but they are encouraged to definitely watch those if they have specific questions about what information will be used and how. Here is the information specifically for the parent. So you'll notice up here at the top of the page, it is saying parent of Raya. So that's the student, but this information that we're going to go through is parent information, and then parent, identity is here. So we'll review this information's correct before we move forward. Again, the information that autofills with their name, date of birth, social, email, that is all information that came from when they made their studentaid.gov account. So if anything is incorrect there, they'll go to their account settings to update. But then they are able to update their permanent mailing address here. And I believe we do need to change that for the mom. Sorry, let me go back through here. Oh, I think it's the same as the students. Okay, we're going to go off up here. Thank you. Sorry for listening. All right, perfect. And again, the consent page, so this will be for the parent to understand that they do need to provide their consent as well for this, for their student to be eligible for aid. It does go through their information on how they pull the 2024 tax information. Again, we kind of covered this in the deep dive. So parents will come down, they can open some frequently asked questions here and then click approve to give consent. And then just takes a minute to import the tax information, success, which is great. And that does prompt parent that they will need to answer some additional questions for their financials in the financial section. All right, so the current marital status. So this is for Alcina. How would I answer current marital status for Alcina in this case?
Remarried?
Remarried.
Correct. Yes, remarried. Perfect. Continue. And state of residence. It was Utah, correct? I believe the parent was the same as the student. Will you double check that it's May? Nope, March of 2020, I believe. All right, parent finances. So we'll just go through the eligibility information here, and there is a link in the live version to look at special financial circumstances. For this demonstration, we'll go through here for federal benefits. At any time during 2024 or 25, did the parent or anyone in their family receive benefits from the following federal programs? I believe it's no, but let's take a look. Okay, they have no IRA or pension rollovers, no benefits reported as income to the IRS, or no foreign earned income exclusion. Perfect. So we'll click none and continue. For family size, is the parent's family size different from the number of individuals claimed on their 2024 tax return? So we'll click no. And number in college, how many people in the parent's family will be in college between July 1, 2026 and June 30th, 2027? This auto-filled as one. It will just be Raya. That's in college. So we'll click continue. And then again, it did pull information directly from their 2024 tax return, but they do have to answer a few additional questions here. And if the answer is 0, they can enter 0. Maybe you can help me with this one as well. With the IRA rollover, I don't know that they had. Excuse me. Give me 1 second. I need some water here. Okay, let's swap back here. Let's see. Oh, I think I just answered those questions to myself before. 0, 0. Okay. Annual child support received. Oop, I do think there was a dollar amount there. Maybe someone can help me with these next couple. What was the amount of child support that Alcina received?
$500 per month.
Okay.
So they want it for the calendar year though. So we need to multiply that by 12.
Oh, let's go back. Yeah, what do we have in our case study here? Received, yeah, 500 monthly. Perfect.
So yeah, it'd be 6,000. Yeah.
You. All right. Parent assets. So current total of cash savings and checking. I know we still have the page open because you knew what the last one was. Don't make me swap back. Okay, let me look.
Is this for
Okay.
both parents or just for one?
This is for
This is
total
for
parent.
Alcina.
Yeah.
Oh, for total parents?
No, I'm so sorry. Ask me your question one more time.
This is just for Alcina, right? Like how much she has.
Yeah, we're answering questions about Alcina for this one right now.
So $10,000, I think.
That's right.
Anyone else? Okay, perfect. Current net worth investments, including real estate. Nothing. Zero. Are we answering zero for that one?
It's I think $25,000 because of Travis's mutual fund.
Thank you. Current net worth businesses and investment farms. Enter the net worth of parent businesses and income producing farms. Net worth is the value of businesses and farms minus any debts owed against them. Don't include a family business with 100 or fewer full-time employees, farms where the family resides, or a commercial fishing business and related expenses. Let's go back, Dylan. I think I see a comment from you in the chat that if parents are married, all assets are combined. So do we have additional information in our case study here for the spouse for Travis? So we answered, let's see, where did we mess up here?
I don't think we did. I think it was just back to
Okay.
the question about if you're combining, you would only do, for this case, you're using the mom, the biological mother, and her spouse. And so those two get combined here, where you wouldn't be combining Raya's father, her biological father, because his information isn't being required for the FAFSA.
Got it. Thank you.
And for this one, I'll just comment, it's gone back and forth a little bit, but there's an exclusion back in place that's really important. It made it kind of complicated for students whose parent had owned a small business or a farm in the last couple of years. So it's important to note here that this exclusion is back in place, that you wouldn't include a family business with 100 or fewer full-time employees. In the example, it says that the hair salon that Alcina owns has 25 employees. So for this one, because that's less than 100, it wouldn't have to be included. It gets excluded from the FAFSA, so it makes it simpler than last year where you'd have to do a little bit more math here.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Cassidy. Any questions before we move on? I know that one is a little bit, that'll be the maybe most tricky of all of the slides we've seen, or as you maybe move forward. So any other questions there before we move on?
And if there's no questions, just one last comment. This, as Ashley has pointed out a few times, has limits as a prototype. On the real FAFSA, there's really helpful info icons that exist next to almost every single one of these questions, particularly when you get into this financial piece. This is, of course, as you all probably know, one of the more tricky parts of the FAFSA and cause folks the most stress. And so I would just highly encourage, if you're getting questions, that folks use those info icons. They're small, you can easily miss them, but they include some extremely valuable information that do make it a lot easier to fill it out when there's some uncertainty.
Yes, amazing. Thank you, Cassidy. Alrighty. Okay, we'll continue. So here it does let them know that we do need to invite the parent's spouse to this FAFSA form. So Alcina, because she is married but filed separately, we will need to invite their spouse as a contributor. So they'll click continue here. And then the way that we will invite the parent spouse is through email. Let me pull up that again. Sorry to have you watch me scroll.
You can scrolled past it just a little bit, Ash.
Okay, right here, stepfather email. Hey, Travis. So we are going to invite Travis. send invite. And then click continue. So this is the place where Alcina is going to review her responses on the FAFSA. So they will look at their parent sections, the personal identifiers that they entered, make sure all their personal demographic information looks good, financial information, and then it does let them know that they have then shared it with their one contributor, who is the parent, spouse, or partner. And then as you'll notice, they have a separate invite code that was different than what Alcina's, code was before. So everyone is getting that specific code that will be linked to, exactly what portion and what type of information is needed, which is really helpful. So we'll click continue here. And then the parent, or in this situation, Alcina, the mother, will sign and complete this section, selecting the box they are agreeing to the terms, and then sign. And then it's pending. So there's one additional parent section that's complete, and it does refer to the information down there at the bottom. And then because this is the prototype, it is going to link us directly to this next parent spouse information that's necessary. So again, this is just like a look at what the email they would get will look like. So Travis is the stepfather. It is saying that Raya started their application and needs information. So we'll accept the information directly from the email. And then because Travis needs to sign in here, that means Travis does need to have his own studentaid.gov account. So if he pops up here and didn't realize or wasn't aware, they're able to create their account. As we mentioned back in our previous deep dive and other information, that you don't need to wait the full 1 to 3 business days to get that account verification. So if perhaps Travis is clicking on this email, pulling it up, and needs to create an account that day, should be able to do that and have that verification done instantly. That way then could log in here to complete their portion. Again, since we went through the link in the email, it has the code auto-filled here. So we'll just click submit. And then again, just agreeing to share information with the FAFSA. And just another frequently asked questions section for this parent specifically. Again, you'll notice up here it's changed a bit. So we still are in Raya's FAFSA information, but that this is the parent, spouse, or partner of Raya. So that's kind of how we can tell who we're navigating through. And you can always look up here in the top right-hand corner. It shows the name of the person whose account you're logged into. So that name that's up here should always match the information here. And then you'll know that's who you need to be answering information for. So we'll click continue through, and it does go into Travis's information. We'll double check everything's correct. Looks like we do need to update the mailing address for Travis. I'm so sorry. It's my first day here. Did we decide they have the same address? Perhaps. See biological mother's address. Okay, awesome. Let's do that. Oops. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. All right, just again, same thing we talked about before, they do have to provide consent. It just gives them some information on what they're giving consent for. Some frequently asked questions, they'll click approve. Also importing this information from the IRS, and then they will just have a couple of quick follow-up questions that they'll enter in here. Okay, so parent spouse information, as you'll notice, they just have these two sections. Basically, they answer this page of financials and then their signature, since everything else was pulled from their tax return. IRA rollover. I think all these were 0. Can someone confirm for me if I need to enter in anything here? He might have been retired, actually. Let's look. Let's look together. Asina remarried Travis, stepfather. Blah, blah, blah.
It's right above that, I think, on the bottom of page 7. Yeah, mother's finances right there.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to do zeros. Continue. And very easy for this one. So they quickly review their FAFSA responses. Basically, there's just their personal identifiers and information. And then very easily, as the tax information was pulled over separate from theirs, they just had a couple quick questions to answer and then can click continue. Again, they do have to sign their section as well. So this will be for Travis, signing or checking the box and then signing. And then, as you'll notice, this section finally looks different. It says, congratulations, the FAFSA form's complete for Raya. So it does have the student's name on the top of the page here with a completion date. And then it does let them know that the student will receive an email version of the page. So even though the final step in the scenario is the parent or step parent that's completing the final step, because it is Raya's application, the email is getting sent to the student. Then the student is able to track the status of their form and then receive school communications. It does let them know, that the information collected, used to calculate their SAI. Essentially, the school uses that to determine how much they're eligible to receive, and they can contact their financial aid offices if they have specific questions. They can, from here, again, this is limited functionality here, but they can kind of view their status. I think in our case study here, let's go back down to the bottom. I think we have some follow-up information and some discussion things that we can go through. Maybe before I click off of this page, are there any final thoughts about the walkthrough? Any questions about the actual form? And then maybe we can go back to the case study and then just go through the discussion prompt.
I think
Cassidy,
we've
any?
actually covered the discussion
Okay,
prompt. So
cool.
got about 2 minutes left till the top of the hour. So if there's any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, unmute. I'm able to stick around for a couple extra minutes if there's anyone that has a longer than 2-minute question, but
Cool. Well, we did it. We made it through a FAFSA application, and you did one that was a little more complicated than normal. So congrats, we made it to the end. As a reminder, let me pop this other screen back up. Let's see here. Oops. Just getting I don't know what I just did to swap that, but you can still see my screen, I think. So, as a reminder, we have two more. We'll go through an intermediate and an advanced case study in the next couple of weeks. So, if you're able to join us at a couple of those other events, feel free. We would love to have you. And as we've done with our other materials, they'll be online in the next little bit and emailed out to you. So, you'll have them. And then here's our contact information so you can reach out. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone coming today and for everyone who participated. So,
And for those that have to jump off, we totally understand, but there's a question about who you get to select as the parent in the chat, and I'd love to spend a few minutes dipping into that. So again, feel free to jump off if you've got other things to jump into, but otherwise, Ash, if you want, we can maybe dive into the
sure.
question. There's been some really good questions about how you're selecting the parent in the chat, and so I'm just going to get the parent tool pulled up on my screen. I have about 5,000 open right now. So let me get this popped up and we can go through it together. So in the case where parents are, or in the case where maybe a student has a little bit more complicated situation where they're trying to determine which parent they're providing on their FAFSA. Again, if their legal parents are married and filed their taxes jointly or are just married, then it's a little bit simpler. But in this case, we're going to say mom and dad for simple terms. This is just a tool that's helping the student determine who they need to include on their FAFSA. It's not actually entering any information into the form. It's a separate tool. Students, it's not actually part of the FAFSA anymore. If you helped students last year, it's not anymore, but it's a freestanding tool. So if a student is preparing to complete the FAFSA and they're trying to figure out which parent or who needs to be included on their FAFSA, you can Google who is my parent on the FAFSA, or follow this link, and it's a interactive tool they can enter. But so in the case where the parents are not married to each other, or are the parents married to each other and not separated? In this case, we'd select no. If you click yes, it kind of gives you a quicker answer. It's making sure, okay, they're not married and not separated. So are they living together? The answer is no. And then this is where I think the question is coming in. And so this is where if the parents are not married to each other and they're not living together, it then defers to which parent provided the most financial support to the student over the last 12 months. So this is up to each family to consider and be providing the most accurate answer that they can. I don't know that this is something that any professionals would determine. I would leave this or recommend you leave it to families. But this is kind of what the tool is deciding. So assuming they say, well, everything is split 50-50, both parents contribute equally, only then is it deciding who provides, or excuse me, who has the greater asset and income. Again, that's up to the family to decide how they answer that, but that's only if the financial contributions for the last 12 months were not, or one parent didn't provide more. So in a case, let's say mom provided more financial support, kind of like in the scenario, the parents were divorced, they're not married together. And Alcina, I think we said in this example, provided more financial support to Raya over the last 12 months, not necessarily determining who has the greater income or assets, but because mom provided more financial support, that's who we select. And then you determine from there if that parent was remarried or not. And it will tell you then, based on those answers, who should be included on the FAFSA form. Does that make sense? Does that clear up any of the questions? I mean, I think this is probably actually one of the more tricky parts of the FAFSA, so I'm sure it doesn't clear up all of the questions, but hopefully I find this tool really helpful. There's also one if you look it up that is just like a chart that you can print out. It looks like a flow chart that helps answer those questions if it's something that you maybe want to just like have in an event where maybe you're not at a computer or something like that. You can use that tool as well. But this one uses that smart logic to really quickly help populate the questions and hopefully um, help the families make an informed decision.
Thank you. That would
Yeah.
help a lot.
Great. I'm glad that, like I said, this is probably the section that gets the most questions. So I appreciate you asking them and bringing some real experience to the training today. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for sticking around a couple extra minutes. Ash, I'll turn it over to you to wrap us up.